Peace, welcome to class. Before we get into it, I just want you to look at this picture and think about what did you learn in school about the transatlantic slave trade or the triangular trade or whatever they wanted to call it back then when you were in school, and why did they teach you that exact narrative, and what do you know that may have been left out that should have been taught in school? For me, as a child growing up in Glenn County, Georgia in the United States, we learned about the triangular trade as the trade between Africa, the Western Hemisphere, and Europe. Enslaved Africans were taken from Africans and sold by other Africans for manufactured goods from Europe. These Africans would be taken to the Western Hemisphere, the Caribbean, Latin America, South America, North America, all of these other places, and especially in my area, enslaved people would be growing rice, cotton, and things like that, even sugarcane. These raw materials would then be taken to Europe to be manufactured and turned into goods that can be taken back to Africa to be traded for more Africans. As a young African growing up in the United States, it's a very different experience from almost anywhere around the world to be taught by your oppressor how they oppress you. And sitting in that class, usually learning from a white person about what white people did to us and how they packed us into ships like sardines, made us live amongst the dead, no food, raping and killing our women and children. It never dawned on us as kids, did we ever rebel? Was there ever a time where we actually won? Or was it just the long line of generation of betrayal and work and slavery? Now, growing up in Brunswick, my parents had taught me about Ibo Landing, where some Ibo enslaved Africans who had been taken from Nigeria made it all the way to the United States, actually my hometown, and decided that since they had nowhere to go, their only choice was to jump back in the water and go that way. You can actually go check out one of my previous videos about that. But I wonder why in school we never learned about Little George's Rebellion, where Africans actually took a ship back to Africa. In June of 1730, Captain George Scott was sailing the Little George, a ship owned by Godfrey Malbone, one of the wealthiest men in all of North America. He had the biggest mansion in Rhode Island, and of course he owned enslaved Africans. He was also good friends with one of y'all founding fathers, George Washington. This specific groups of captured Africans was taken from what we now call Guinea in West Africa. We had been living a normal human life for over 1,000 years in this area before any European had even touched the coast of Africa. We were teachers, farmers, mothers, fathers, regular people. I want to emphasize the humanism of these enslaved Africans because they were not just slaves, as school likes to teach us. About 5 days after the ship took off from the coast of West Africa, some of the men in the bottom of the ship who were chained up next to each other were actually able to get out, and they took full advantage of the opportunity. First, they threw 3 of the watchmen overboard. At this point, the captain and the rest of his crew tried to fight back a little bit, but eventually they were subdued and forced into the captain's quarters. Being that these were West Africans who usually traveled on rivers if they were traveling on water, it was most likely that none of them had any type of experience sailing a ship like the Little George. But they were able to turn it around and take it all the way back to the Sierra Leone River area. But the thing is, they were a little bit too empathetic for my eyes, but I could see where they were coming from. But why I say that? Because they actually left the people, the crew and Captain George Scott, they just left them in the captain's quarter, and they actually survived in there for 9 days straight on raw rice alone. Captain George Scott ended up going back to the United States, getting married, and continued to participate in the transatlantic slave trade for another 10 years. There aren't too many public school systems around the country that would allow something like the Little George Rebellion to be taught in their schools. They don't want us to know about the strength and the courage and also the empathy of our people throughout the history and to this day. So we have to use social media and all the platforms that we have today to educate our future generations as well as the ones who are here now who may be lost and have went through this whole system of propaganda in the United States. If you want to help me on this journey of educating the masses, make sure you share this with a friend, like, and subscribe. If you have any other ideas for future videos or if there's anything that you want more details about, just leave a comment down below. Peace.